Right, so it's Mr. Dosser here, and today I want to talk about why I do not like a lot of new cars, specifically new sports cars. Before we get into the video, could you please drop the video a like, comment and subscribe. Let me know what you think and what you want to see next. So why don't I like a lot of new cars? Well, sports cars. I'm going to list them off. Number one, they're too expensive. Let's start off with in the last week, the M5 CS has been released. Now BMW, this is their first time they've done an M5 CS. Normally the CS Club Sport is reserved for their smaller cars like the M2s and the M3s. However, they've done it to the M5 and it's far too expensive. It's £140,000. Now, in that segment, they've got the Porsche Panamera Turbo S, you've got the Mercedes AMG GT63S, that's a bit of a mouthful, I think I got that right. Again, they're all around the 140 to 150 grand mark. They're too expensive, and I don't understand why they need to exist as cars. Because again, a lot of cars, what I'm finding now, like the new Golf R, £40,000, and I wouldn't be surprised if the new iteration, the newest, the next generation, if that was to cost £50,000 the next 5 to 10 years. And I understand a lot of these prices are irrelevant. The list price is irrelevant. It's down to the monthly PCP payments. And even the people that can afford these cars, £150,000 cars brand new, they will go down the finance route because it just makes sense because they can use that money to better use. But anyway, that's a different video. We'll talk about that in a different video. Second point, they have too much power. So this M5 CS has 635 horsepower. I don't know who's ever said the previous M5 or the non-CS version had no power, because no one's complained about the power figure. Even the previous generation F10 M5 or the generation before that, the E60, no one said this doesn't have enough power. It's the same, even Ferraris like the F12 to the 812, no one said the F12 707 horsepower, not enough. And I think they're forgetting about the actual things that matter, such as driving dynamics, specifically in sports cars. Your run-of-the-mill cars, I understand, if you have a hatchback and someone says, I can get more power out of the new 1 litre than you could in the previous 1.4 litre, yes, that makes sense. And I understand why they're doing that, and I'm all for that. But for sports cars, power's not everything. And that brings me on to my next point, is why I think they're doing that. And that's because they're too heavy. A lot of newer cars are heavy, far too heavy. The M5s, etc. 2.1, 2.2, even some of the rivals are 2.3 tons. Those are weights you'd associate normally with SUVs, Range Rovers, etc. But now they're with saloons and shooting brakes. And you can hide mass up to a certain point. So back in the day, Nissan GTRs released, 2007, 2008. Yeah, at the time it was considered quite a heavy car. But nowadays, I think, you can't just have a heavy lump of metal. Yes, I understand safety is important, and due to these safety systems, the weight will go up. And yes, cars are safer on the road. If you were to have an accident now in a newer M5 compared to an old M5 or E63, you're more likely to survive, and I'm all for that. However, I think they've forgotten about trying to use lightweight materials in other areas. And I understand with the whole, trying to make the car more powerful, go back on that point, it's to please the shareholders, because if you're going from one iteration of car to the next one, to show people, to show the company, shareholders, etc., that you've made progress, one of the things you look at is the headline figures, the power figure. I'm at fault for doing this as well. You look at, okay, how much more power do they have compared to the previous generation? And whilst that's not the be-all and end-all of cars, it's what sells, unfortunately. Anyway, my next point is that cars have too much useless technology. Again, I understand safety systems are important. However, I'm not one of those people that says, oh, you should park yourself, don't use parking sensors, you don't need them, blah, blah, blah. No, I like parking sensors. I like a rear view camera, heated seats, fine, sat nav, really helpful in cars, air conditioning, blah, 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 etc., etc. Even cruise control is really useful on a long journey. However, it's got to a point now where these cars have so much technology, I feel like they are controlling the car more than you are. And I feel like some of it isn't actually that useful. For instance, who decided to put touchscreens in a car? Exclusively touchscreens, so no other physical buttons. That is, quite frankly, dangerous. And before we get into why, I just want to say, could you please drop the comment and like, subscribe, comment. Also hit the notification bell. And I've noticed a lot of you haven't subscribed. Over 99% of you are watching have not subscribed to the channel. Drop me a subscribe. Let me know what you think. What do you want to see more of? Anyway, let's get back into it. So the useless technology, it's just there's far too much of it around. The screens, the touch screens, you have to take your eye off the road onto the screen. Everything now is accessed. Like in the Audis, you have to go through sub-menu after sub-menu to access basic things that in the previous generations you could just press one button. And the muscle memory you develop from having physical buttons, you know exactly where the heating controls are, you know exactly where the change radio station button is, and you can still keep your eyes on the road. Nowadays, you don't have that. I think that's quite dangerous. My next point is sound, the lack of it. Now, I'm excluding electric cars out of this because I've done a video on electric cars and I'll probably do more on them because they're not really included because, you know, it's not their fault. But with petrol cars, there's no reason for them to sound rubbish these days. Even if you put a turbo on it, you can still make a turbo car sound good. Now, I understand with emissions regulations, etc., they've installed GPF, a gas particulate filter, which will affect the sound coming out of the exhaust. But, you know, it's a real shame, and there's a problem I have with it. I understand we need to do more as a planet for the environment, for the future, sustainability, etc. However, I want to put it into perspective. You have hundreds of companies, thousands of companies out there, industry, etc. They are polluting the environment. They are producing so much CO2, nitrous oxide, other harmful pollutants into the air. Now, if I'm out there going to buy this new, let's say, BMW M5 CS, how many of them will they actually sell, number one? Number two, how many miles will the actual average owner do in this car? 5,000, 6,000, maybe 8,000 miles a year. Now, how much extra will it actually pollute into the atmosphere compared to a normal, let's say, 520i or 530i, you know, the box standard 5 Series? I'd like to know what that figure is, and I don't think it will actually count towards the overall CO2 or nitrous oxide emissions into the air. And I think it's quite disingenuous for them to say, you know, that they just target the car. Because for me, personally, I enjoy cars. I understand we need to do more for cars, but if you've worked hard for your money and you saved hard, you made investments, you've been lucky, you then want to reward from it. And when you put all this money into a car, you want it to sound nice. Otherwise, you just go ahead and buy an electric car if you don't care about the sound. So I think it's a real shame. I know, yes, you can get aftermarket exhaust and go down that route, but then you're potentially avoiding the warranty, and then you're just disregarding the GPF filters and all the work the engineers put in to meet the emissions regulation. So I guess there's a way around it, but it's a bit, you know, it's a bit of a grey area. Let's put it at that. And my last point is you can't repair these new cars. Now, you might be thinking, hang on, Mr. Dossett, you can repair these cars. What on earth are you talking about? Yes, you can, but DIY repairs are becoming almost impossible. You have to take it to a main dealer. Even when you take these cars to an independent mechanic, they look at it and they think, yeah, you're better off going there because half the parts or tools I need, diagnostic equipment, etc., that you need nowadays to do the basic, simplest of things, you have to go through the main dealer. So they're going to have to go to them anyway. So they say, just go there. It'll be much quicker, much easier, cut out the middleman almost. There's a real shame. And even DIY, for instance, older cars. I've changed the oil, I've done basic servicing on a car, nice and easy. You got your Halford socket set, you buy parts from Euro Car Parts, wherever it is, you get your jack stands, your jacks, couple bricks underneath. You can do your basic servicing. You know, there's plenty of YouTube videos and guides online, Haynes manuals, you might have remembered them. We have them here in the UK. And you can do it yourself. However, all these new cars, just they pop up so many error messages, plug this in, you have to have software specific for that brand. Then you have to pay like a yearly fee, and you have to get special tools just to access certain things, and it's just not viable, economically viable for the average consumer. And on top of that, you've got stuff like, let's say, changing the headlight bulb. In an older car, easy, you just remove it, put the headlight bulb. A lot of newer cars, remove the whole of the front bumper, remove the wheel, go into the wheel arch, remove some other material, then you can get into headlight casing. Oh wait, the headlight casing, you need a special tool, a special type of screw to actually open it, which you can only get from the main dealer. Something as simple as that, it just puts off any sort of DIY work. And it's a real shame because I think it's affecting the future people that want to become DIY mechanics, that want to learn about cars. So those are the reasons why I don't like a lot of new cars, specifically sports cars. I think it's a real shame. And let me know what you think, what you want to see in the next video, and I'll see you next time.